There we go. We are working on a mobile operating system, and I'll give you a good cover of this. So first, we have our competition. So as was mentioned before, we are not really looking to compete against iPhones or Android. So a lot of people in this room, when they first pick up a Firefox device, they may think that this can't hold its own against my Android or my iPhone that's in my pocket. But what we're really looking for is competing against the old feature phones, the ones that are indestructible that people could use for a bulletproof vest. These are the phones that we're looking to compete against. What we want to do is we want to bring the real web to the whole world. So there are a lot of people that this is still the phone that they're buying, and we want to replace that. We want to change that. So first, we look at HTML5, and we know that like every technology, it goes through this kind of hype phase. And where we're at right now is basically this, what I would say is this plateau of productivity where people have already, they've gotten overhyped by it, they found where it's lacking, we're starting to fix those, and now we're able to move forward. Some of the really great things, though, about HTML5 are, one, it's becoming an application platform. A lot of people use Gmail or Outlook Web Access as their email client. Desktop email clients are really fading away, so that really shows the power of HTML5. We now have worldwide availability without waiting for hardware. So if a new feature comes in for a web browser, you don't need to go out and buy a new computer in order to use it. Flexibility, a simple development environment. There's no SDK that developers have to download. They don't need to purchase specific devices. And we have very simple deployment. You can just upload it straight to your web server. With that being said, though, it still isn't perfect, and we're still working on fixing it. So one of the barriers for HTML5 is handmade. And for years, people have been trying to say, how do we fit HTML5 onto this device? How do we integrate the web into this device? And instead of rephrasing that and saying, how can we take the web and give the web what this device has? It's a change of how you apply the two. So we can see that just in the past 4 years, times have really changed. What's hard to see in the slide is on the top, you have the inauguration in 2009. We are the first family. They're watching. Attention is very straight. And then on the bottom, you can't see it here, but they're all checking their mobile phones. Okay, everybody. And I think you can kind of see at the far right end, you can see people are looking down into their lap. So, mobile has really become something extraordinary, just very fast, too. And, we could spend time focusing on different numbers and projections, but we know that can all change in a month. So I'll skip that. But this is where we're at right now. So if you're a mobile app, if you're saying I'm Twitter, for example, if I was Twitter and I wanted to write an app for all in HTML5, this is what I've got right now. This is the environment that the major mobile operating systems put these web stacks in. You've got the browser and the JavaScript engine, and they're really clamped down by the mobile operating system. In fact, you can see this on iOS, where if you write an app that is basically a website wrapped as a native app, it runs slower than if the person were to use Safari to access that same website. And this is really one of the key fundamental things that's holding HTML5 back. One of the other problems that HTML5 still has with mobile is a lack of a native distribution platform. So one of the real advantages if you pick up an iPhone or an Android phone is that when you want an app, there's a really simple way to get that app. You can go to their store. You can install the app. You don't really get lost. Maybe you see some fake ones that are in there in Android, but for the most part, you can find what you're looking for. And with the web, it still isn't that perfect. Um, you either need to go to Google and do a search to find this website that you're looking for, or you need to ask a friend, how do I find out sports scores on my phone? What's the best way? So in the past, there's been different attempts at trying to integrate the web with phones, and these have been kind of failed mimicking attempts in a way. Can anybody in the audience tell me what this picture is? As a side note? Platform shoes over here? A thief's shoe? It's kind of close. So back during the Prohibition, moonshiners, when they wanted to move their barrels of alcohol, they didn't want the police to be able to track their footprints, so they made their shoes to look like cow prints. Okay, so if the police came by, they would just see these cow tracks. And the reason why I have this on the slide here is because it kind of, if you look back at previous attempts at trying to make a mobile operating system that runs on the web, you see some things where people have taken the ideas of web technologies and extended them in proprietary nature, things that aren't really open and standardized. So this is what we're trying not to do. This is what we're definitely going away from. On the other hand, we have people like Mark Zuckerberg, who says a line at TechCrunch, Disrupt, that making their app in HTML5 was a big mistake. But what we really learned from that is quoting is hard. So the quote went like this: I think the biggest mistake that we made as a company was betting too much on HTML5 as opposed to native because it just wasn't there. But they failed to mention this part. So they actually have more people on a daily basis that use the mobile web Facebook than their iOS and Android apps combined. So I think this is really important too, because this kind of shows that in the United States, we get really focused onto what we and what our neighbor are doing, but we lose track of the whole world and what the different ways that people use technology in other parts of the world. So Facebook actually built this internal framework called FaceWeb, but they were never able to get the quality that they wanted out of it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that HTML5 and its related technologies are not up to par. It could just mean that Facebook's approach at this wasn't up to par. Maybe if they did some things differently, maybe it would have been better. So there was this company named Sentra. They're very focused on mobile web and getting people to use that as a technology. They were kind of offended by this, so they created their own app called Fastbook, which used the Facebook APIs, and it was a really, really fast implementation of Facebook for your phone, and it was a great proof of concept to show that, look, you can do this with technology if you approach it the right way. So really what we need, though, is we need to bring these best features to hardware without a conversion step in between, and without treating HTML5 as a subclass citizen. So you don't need to take your web app and convert it into this native app. That step kind of has to be broken. So this brings us to Firefox OS. And it is I'd like to say, and I feel pretty confident in saying that it's the first truly open operating system for mobile devices. Starting from day one, when the project was first announced, it was announced via a GitHub repo that had just a README saying, this is where we'll start our work on this. And there was no big code drop. There was nothing that said, we at Mozilla have been working on this for 6 months, and here's where we're at right now. So we've involved the community from day one. And this is what we're trying to do. So we're opening up the phones all the way down. So in this diagram, you can see these are APIs that we are making right now, JavaScript APIs. So we have multi-touch, web telephony, web SMS, WebGL, a camera, geolocation, battery API, web vibration. Web USB is not there yet, but it's coming. Web contacts, full screen API. settings API, and the list goes on. So we have this really cool website called Aubrey Mobile Yet, and this this website is pretty cool. Actually, I'll open it up right now. This right here, it tracks all of the, oh, I actually can't do it, I'm offline. So this website tracks all of the APIs as they're in development. So if you were looking to see like where's the web contacts API, how soon before I'll be able to use this, you'd be able to use that website to see what version is coming through and these things like this. These are all being implemented as part of the device API working group, as Randy mentioned, and they're all being standardized. And here I'll give you an example of one of them. So this is the battery API. I won't go too much into the code, but this is really interesting because these are the things that you need to make a phone. And I'll take a step back here because I didn't mention this earlier, but the Firefox OS mobile phones, that whole user interface, that everything that the user sees is all running with web technology. So the home screen, the dialer app, all of that is all running in HTML5, JavaScript, CSS. So Mozilla does not have a special layer that we get to write privileged things in. It's all the same. So that means that everything that we need to do with a phone to make a phone that can sell, we need APIs for. So this is a battery API that gives us the ability to put the battery indicator at the top of the phone. One of the other things about this is we have our web vibration API. And as I said earlier, we're working with standards groups. So we implemented the web vibration API, and it didn't take too long for some Tizen developers at Samsung to implement the same web vibration API in WebKit. So this is our way of telling people and reassuring them that you can never go wrong by betting on the web. We want to bring the same device capabilities to the web. We want websites to have the same power as, quote, native apps, and we want there to be equality there. So we're already seeing that spread to other web engines, and that's kind of the first huge success out of this. So the other thing is we have developer tools. Those are built into the browser. You don't need to download anything special. If you already have the browser, you've got them. And we have different ways that you can add new widgets and share those. We even have a simulator built into the browser. So if you have Firefox installed, I don't know if you need Aurora or earlier, but if you have Firefox installed, you can already run a simulator right on your desktop. So I'll show you that real quickly here. So I've installed the Firefox OS simulator as a developer tool. Okay, it's not showing up there. Let me see if I do this. Okay, so it's not appearing right now, but I can show it to you later. I actually have in my pocket, which I can show afterwards, is a developer device for the Firefox OS phone. So I can show this after the talk to people who want to see it running in person. Now, one of the really cool things about this is you can make your apps right there on your desktop computer. You can simulate them, and you can do about 99% right there with the simulator, or just viewing it as a web page. And then you can do most of your performance testing on a mobile device. So this also works on Android, which is pretty neat. Basically, anywhere that you can install Firefox today, you can install apps that are designed for Firefox OS. So with my Android phone, I made an app for Firefox OS. I also had that same app installed on my Android, and I also have that same app installed on my desktop. I can show you that. That will work here. So this is an example of a game that I made for Firefox OS phones. It's like a snake game. And then I used responsive design principles, so it changes its layout when it's on a smaller viewport. And this is one of those things that you can do if you were developing an app. So you see it would fit on the Firefox phone. Now this is, yes. Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So the question was, I wrote this game once, and I installed it on my Firefox OS phone, and then I went and installed the same thing onto my desktop. I didn't have three different builds of it. It's the exact same code and exact same version, no differences. And I installed on an Android phone, which is also something I can demo for you. Not on an Apple phone, correct. So anywhere where Firefox will run. And the way that this works is you write your app, you write an app manifest, which is basically some meta information. It's a title of your app, description, icons, and so forth. Then you can upload that to our marketplace, and the marketplace is where people will get the apps from. So in this case, I went to marketplace.mozilla.org, which you can visit today, and you can install these apps on your desktop, on your Android, or your Firefox OS phone. And the way that it works is basically this loads up Gecko, and it runs it through that. So that's why you need Firefox installed, but that's how that works. Yeah, so if you wanted to try it out, it's marketplace.mozilla.org. Most of the apps on there right now are probably mobile, but they should all still work on your desktop. I can't do that right now because I'm not online. But that's, it's kind of a really cool way of bringing the same experience to all of these platforms. And it really does show the power. And so these, I can show, actually, if I step back here, I can go, no, I won't be able to. Okay, so the battery API that I talked about earlier, that API access to the hardware is also implemented everywhere that Firefox is. So it's implemented for the Firefox OS phone, so we can see the battery indicator there, but it's also implemented for Android, and it's implemented for desktop. So if I load a website can tell what battery level that I have right now. This is pretty cool because as we've been working on this, we've been realizing how a lot of APIs that desktop applications or native applications, whether they're mobile, desktop, anywhere, there's a lot that they've been lacking if they really want to compete against a native platform. So if you can imagine you're making Google Docs, you want to know when the laptop is about to die so that you can start saving, so you can turn off certain battery expensive operations so that people can use your app longer. You would need access to things like a battery API. So that's why these APIs are really important for bridging the gap between native, quote, native and mobile. This is a screenshot of what the marketplace looks like. It's the standard marketplace. People expect it to function like they've seen marketplaces function. But then we also have a new way to find your apps. So one of the really cool things about HTML5, the web, as your mobile operating system, is that from day one, there's already millions of apps that are there. You already have an ESPN app by having mobile ESPN's website, right? You have all of these different things. Here's an example of a search for New York Yankees. And this experience is slightly different. I'll expand more on it in just a minute. But you have all of these apps that already have mobile interfaces. And nothing new really needs to be created for a lot of these. And this is a different experience. So this is like, you can go to your marketplace, you could search for Twitter. More likely, if you go to your marketplace, you could search for Yankees. You might not find ESPN, or you might not find CBS Sports, because that's not in their meta information. Yankees wouldn't be, right? But here you do a search for New York Yankees, and you find any app, basically their websites, but the users don't need to know that. It's any app that fits that. And then press and hold. You can add it to your home screen. You now have a really quick shortcut to ESPN or Yahoo Sports and so forth. And it's the mobile view of the website. And this is really important because one of the problems, as I touched on earlier, with the lack of a way for people to get apps, is that when you're using your mobile phone, it becomes a burden to go to your web browser and type in yahoo.com/sports or whatever that URL is. And we realize that's kind of a problem, but one of the ways to fix that is make it really easy to get access to that site and make it really easy to keep a bookmark to that site on your home screen. So that's what this does. But we're also not limiting you to needing the Mozilla Marketplace. You don't have to have it in the Mozilla Marketplace, because we know that a lot of great inventions come from opportunity. This was seen with Amazon came out with their own Kindle, and they have their own store, right? And you even see Facebook, as Facebook Home, they take over the Android phone. So this is like ways that you can innovate because of some openness there. Now, what we want to do is we want to make that really easy, but we also want to make it easy for people who are, let's say you are an independent software company and people come to your website to buy your software. We don't want to force you to come to our marketplace. That's kind of a poor user experience, and it limits maybe the potential that you might be able to sell. Perhaps you're better at selling things than we are. We're not necessarily considering ourselves experts in selling items, but maybe you are. So this allows you to install apps straight from your own website. So basically, we are working really hard. We'll be releasing phones this year. We already have been working with carriers and OEM manufacturers, and it's coming really soon. It probably won't be in the U.S. as fast as people would expect. Our first markets are going to be South America and Eastern Europe. That's where we have the largest potential and where most of the people who are currently buying feature phones will be able to get a smartphone for the same price, basically. Yeah. Um, and that's the end of my talk. So I can take any questions people had. Yeah, right here. So the question was, where is the profit? How does Mozilla fund this or pay for this? Right, right. So I can't speak to really many of those specifics. One, because I'm not super privy to that, but other because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But um, basically, we see Mozilla's mission is to open up the web. We make a good amount of money through our desktop browser, and that's been able to um, pay for the development of the phones right now. And if there's any ways to make money off of this in the future, those will come up over time. But I don't know of them right now. But it's not also, we're not in it to make money. I think that's kind of another thing. We're in it to make the web competitive and the web be the future. And yeah, sorry. So Mozilla is a nonprofit. Yeah, we have to pay our pay salaries, and we have to pay other things. So we make money with the search partnerships that we have with other search engines and Firefox, and that is how we're able to pay for other endeavors, and also through donations. Uh, so I'm not sure what cut we'll take. I would expect that there will be some cut, but I can imagine that it will be very competitive. We definitely want to encourage people to um, develop for it, and we want people to have access. Uh, some requirements that we may have in richer economies may be too hard to uh, put upon developers in economies where they have less money to spend on this. Uh, so are we optimizing for the feature phone? I'd say that we're not actually. Let me rephrase that question because think that I can still answer it though in a better way. Is that we are we're starting off competing against feature phones, but Firefox OS is not targeted as a feature phone. It will be targeted as a smartphone. So we're working with smartphone manufacturers, but we're trying to understand the market of what are people looking for? What are some features that they're looking for in their feature phones or in their smartphones? And what can we bring there today? And it turns out that you can actually bring a whole lot at a low price because we're not going for there's not going to be a quad-core Android phone or a quad-core Firefox OS phone this year. That's not the market that we're looking for in the immediate. Right now, what we're looking for is devices that have low RAM. Uh, for instance, the one in my pocket has 256 megabytes of RAM and a gigahertz processor. Now, most people, yeah, so that seems hard, but when you see, I'll give a demo after this, it's running at 60 frames per second, and we're able to cut out a lot of the requirements that Android has because we don't have the Dalvik JVM on there. So we can run much closer to the metal, and we can get really great performance out of that. Question is, how do we compare ourselves to Chrome OS or Chromebook? I think the way that we're similar is that we're both trying to make the web, trying to reassure people and show people that the web can be a platform. So one of the ways Google is approaching this from desktop first, and we're approaching it from mobile first. But we both have a very similar goal of showing that the web can be the platform. Is the question in the back? So why we're not targeting China and India first? I think that's there's nothing specific, no specific reasoning on why we're not releasing in India or China first. I think a lot of that comes down to finding carriers and OEMs that are going to work with you. So there's nothing that holds us back from those markets. Basically, when we start moving forward and getting phones out to users, then we hope to be everywhere. So if you run the app on, your really powerful MacBook Pro, and then you go to run that same app on your Firefox OS phone, you really should see the same performance. At the end of the day, we have the same optimizations for our JavaScript engines. We have the same optimizations, the exact same rendering engine for both. Now there's slightly worse hardware, so you may see some issues if you're trying to run um, Unreal Engine first-person shooter. That's not going to give you the exact same experience. But if you're trying to load Twitter or Facebook, you're going to see pretty much the exact same experience. So for the majority of use cases, there should be no difference. If you're trying to do a first-person shooter, something really, really intensive that needs very heavy CPU, great graphics card, then of course you'd see a difference there. Yeah, so to share data between applications, we're going with the Web Activities API. So the Web Intents, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that has been, I believe that API, the Web Intents has been deprecated, and they're moving forward with Web Activities. It's similar. The way it works is, let's say you have a photo editing app and you want a picture to edit, then you would request a picture, and in the operating system, right now it can show you, well, do you want to open up the camera app? Do you want to open up the gallery app? You make your selection, and then that data gets passed back to the app that was requesting it. Yes, that is all of those APIs are in HTML5, JavaScript, etc. Yeah. Yeah, all of the apps are sandboxed though. So like you can't go and read the Twitter login details just because you have one app installed doesn't give you access to that same data without physical access to the phone. So if that's it for questions, then thank you for having me here.